Hello, my name is Maria. My own mother handed my cruise with my fiancé to my sister. She called it healing. But worse than that was the silence. The way they erased my name from the booking, cropped me out of the family photo, even charged my card for their upgrade. I showed up with proof in hand. But what happens when the truth finally sits at their table? We parked in front of my mother's split level just as the drizzle thickened over Powell. The sidewalks glistened the way they do after a day of on-again, off-again rain, and the neighborhood smelled like damp cedar and wood smoke. Thorne clicked the fob, then handed me the umbrella. "Ready?" he asked in the voice you use when you're not sure if you're walking into dinner or arbitration. I nodded and we went up the short concrete steps, our coats already stippled with mist. Inside, heat and the smell of casserole. Mom kept her thermostat higher than any doctor would recommend, and still insisted it saved money. Her dining room light was on, the good one with the frosted glass she'd bought on sale when the hardware store closed. On the kitchen table, I saw a stack of Medicare mailers, grocery coupons clipped into neat squares, and an HOA newsletter open to a complaint about lawn heights. Everyday America laid out like a place setting. "Let's keep this civil," Mom said from the doorway to the dining room. She said it like a verdict, not a greeting. Her mouth made a polite smile, but her eyes measured us like the line at the DMV. My sister, Corvina, already sat at the table, chin lifted, hair pulled back as if the evening required a headshot. Thorne hung our coats on the peg and gave me a small look, the one that means, don't bite, breathe. In my family, love is an abacus. Someone is always moving beads. I set a store-bought pie on the counter and wiped my hands. "We came for dinner," I said, because sometimes naming the ordinary keeps it from slipping away. Truth doesn't mind being questioned. The sentence wasn't for them. It was to steady me. On my way to the sink, I noticed the big family photo in the hallway. The frame sat just a little crooked. I made a note to fix it later and kept walking. Mom had set the good plates, the ones with the faint gold rim. She served the casserole, then folded her hands as if we were about to say grace. "This is about healing," she began in the tone she used at church committee meetings when she needed volunteers. "We are a family, and families take turns carrying what's heavy." No one ate. The clock over the microwave ticked a new minute. She turned to me. "Your sister has had a rough year. We're going to make a small reallocation that helps her reset." My fork rested on the rim of the plate. "Reallocation," I repeated, as if the word were unfamiliar in a kitchen. "The cruise," she said gently, almost tender. "The one Thorne booked for you. He's a good man. He'll understand that the promise can be wider. Corvina needs it now." I looked at Thorne. His jaw shifted once, then stilled. "I booked that as a promise," he said, voice low and clear. "To Maria." Mom nodded with sympathy that felt like a coat 2 sizes too small. "Then let that promise be wider. Family steps up. Be the bigger person. We all take turns hurting." I swallowed and kept my tone even. "You're asking or telling?" "I'm shepherding," she said, and smiled as if the word made it gentle. Across the table, Corvina touched the rim of her water glass. "I'm barely keeping it together," she said, eyes damp in a way that managed to be glossy and controlled. "A week at sea might help me get my feet under me." "Deposits are non-refundable," Mom continued briskly, as if discussing weather. "But we can do a transfer. We've already checked your PTO calendar. You can cancel your time and save it for Christmas. This way, nothing's wasted." I put my hand in my lap to steady it. Practical stakes lined up like silverware. The deposit Thorne had put down, the cancellation window, the emails about formal night I'd saved, the little notes we'd made about hiking shoes for the excursion. The moral math hovered. If I object, I'm selfish. If I comply, I disappear. I could feel heat rising in my face and did what I've taught my students before a big exam. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. "How long have you had this plan?" I asked. Replace rage with questions. "When did you decide?" "We decided," she answered, the royal we of our family. "Who is we?" "Family." "Do I count?" "Don't be literal," she said, annoyed now. "This is about healing." I pressed my napkin between my thumb and palm, a small act of friction to keep words from slipping. Thorne cleared his throat. The booking was a promise, he said again, because sometimes the second time matters more. Mom tilted her head. Promises are for the living, and your gift can heal two birds at once. I set my fork down and stood. Excuse me, I said, and stepped into the hallway. The family photo was new, not the session we'd done last spring. This was a different print. It took me a moment to see what was wrong. The composition looked cleaner. The space to the right, where I had stood, was gone, cropped. The frame itself reflected the ceiling light like a thin sheet of ice. I could see my face floating on its surface with nowhere to land. It balances better this way, Corvina said behind me, soft as a pillow. She'd followed like a shadow and leaned against the doorframe, polite smile in place. Design, you know. Too many faces makes a wall busy. I touched the bottom of the frame and straightened it. The bubble in the little built-in level found center. Mom walked up, looked at the frame, and nudged the corner back out of plumb with 2 light taps. Guests get confused when they can't keep track of who lives here, she said. You're always busy. No need to confuse folks. Your house, your wall, I said evenly, and I felt something slide into place inside me. Not resignation, not yet anger, something like clarity. Erasure is tidier than conflict. Back at the table, I poured tea from the kettle and sat. It had gone lukewarm. In this house, I said, more to myself than to anyone, peace has usually meant I'm quiet. I took out my phone and opened a note. I wrote the date. Then, who said healing? Who said wider promise? Who said shepherding? I typed the amounts on the deposit, the date of the non-refundable window, the confirmation number. Thorne's knee tapped mine under the table, a small code we'd developed over 100 dinners. I'm here. Stay measured. Maria, Mom said, we're not trying to take anything from you. We're keeping the bigger picture in view. Boundaries are the price we pay for sanity, I said quietly. She pretended not to hear. I took a breath. When did you tell people this was happening? We've been talking, she said. Aunt Shirley is thrilled for us. Everyone wants to see your sister catch a break. Who accepted the changes with the cruise line? I asked. Mom waved a hand. Details aren't the point. Healing is. Details are the point when money and names are involved. My voice stayed level. Did you open my email confirmation? Or use my name to call? Don't turn this into a courtroom, honey, she said, with that patient disapproval that can make you feel 7. We're doing what's right. Healing is contagious, Corvina added in a voice meant for brochures. You'll feel it too, sis. I noted the phrase silently. Noted. I set my phone down and folded my hands. One boundary, I said, because precision is easier to honor than feelings. No one uses my name or my account. Mom stirred her tea as if the cup were a globe and she could tilt the tides. You owe the family a turn, she said. You had your big promotion. You have a fiancé. Your sister has stories that hurt to tell. The years after Dad died were heavy, I said. I remember who carried what. I also remember what we didn't have and the ways we made do. I'll honor that. But not at the cost of becoming a ghost in my own life. She dabbed the corner of her eye as if the air were dusty. Don't make me the villain here. I'm not casting a play, I said. I'm setting a line. Measure twice. Cut once. No one moved. The casserole cooled. Outside, a car rolled past and the sound of tires on wet asphalt stretched out like a ribbon. I stood and began clearing plates because adulthood is not an exit pass from courtesy. I stacked the dishes, ran water at the sink, rinsed the tea rings from the cups. From the porch light, I could see the rain beating on the top step, each drop catching the sodium glow and letting it go. Thorne joined me at the sink, shoulder to shoulder, the way we do when the room feels too small for the truth. He kept his voice just for me. Say the word, he whispered. Not yet, I answered. Not like this. I dried my hands and wiped the counter where a ring of steam had left a mark. On my way back to the hallway, I paused in front of the photo again. The cut line ran clean through my absence. I memorized it the way you memorize a street you might need to take in the dark. Mom walked by and pressed the frame with her palm. It tilted a hair more. We gathered our coats. I slid the pie back into the paper bag. No one had touched it. "Thanks for dinner," I said, because my parents taught me the right words even for the wrong nights. "Family first," Mom replied, and kissed the air an inch from my cheek. The door closed behind us with the soft latch of new weather stripping. The night air felt better than the house. We walked to the car under the umbrella, and the drops thudded a little louder like small clarinets on the canopy. In the passenger seat, I scrolled to my calendar and a red notification flashed at the top. Cruise, non-refundable window ends. Friday, 5 p.m. A thin line of dread and decision drew itself across my chest. I added a tag in my note, healing, Mom's word, and attached the booking confirmation to the entry. The screen lit my face blue and then dimmed. Thorne started the engine. The cabin light clicked off. We pulled away from the curb and the house got small in the rear view, the porch glow becoming a dot, then nothing. I didn't speak, not until we turned left at the light and the windshield wipers settled into their rhythm. Then, to the quiet, to myself, to the future I intended to keep, I said it once, out loud, so there would be a record somewhere beyond my notes. If healing needs a thief, it's not healing. The next evening, the rain returned like an old habit, tapping the kitchen window while I sat at my mother's table with my phone face down beside the placemat. I had promised myself one thing on the drive over: no arguing, no pleading, just accountability. Step 1. Learn what they changed. I opened the shared family thread and scrolled, little bubbles of certainty, Mom's timestamps from yesterday, a thumbs up from a cousin, 3 pink heart emojis from Corvina. I flipped to my calendar and reread the cancellation window, then the airline change fees Thorne and I had talked through last month when we picked the sailing date. "You good?" Thorne texted from the driveway, giving me 5 minutes to try diplomacy without a crowd. "I'm documenting," I replied. I set a quiet ledger in my head. Who spoke? Who acted? What shifted? When the story moves, track the verbs. And because the sentence always steadies me, I reminded myself of the old line: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Mom placed a folded napkin by my hand as if I were a guest at a luncheon. I invited Aunt Shirley and Uncle Ray to listen on speaker. "It keeps everyone honest," she said, already pecking at her phone. She didn't wait for my answer. The screen lit, a cheerful chime, and then their voices arrived tinny and present. A chorus of approval assembled before a note had been played. "This is about healing," Mom announced, the way a meeting chair opens the agenda. "We need a reset for your sister. Maria has a fiancé. We all know she'll have other chances." "Evening, kiddo," Uncle Ray said from whatever recliner he calls a ship's bridge. "Don't make this about money," Aunt Shirley chimed in. "Family steps up. It's what we do." I folded my hands, palms cool against each other. "Who authorized the change?" I asked. "We did," Mom said. "Who is we?" "Family." "Does family include me?" "Don't be literal, honey." She smiled toward the phone like it could see her. "We're doing what's right." Thorne stepped into the doorway, nodded once to me, and took a chair, choosing the angle where he could see my face and the speaker. "The booking was a gift for Maria," he said, even and careful. "Then it can be a wider gift," Mom replied, satisfied with how generous she sounded. "We are talking about healing. Be the bigger person." Air settled in the room like a fog that wouldn't lift. I spoke without heat. "There's a non-refundable deposit already paid. We planned formal night, booked PTO, picked flights. The boarding pass sits in my wallet with my name on it." "Sweetheart," Aunt Shirley trilled through the phone, "don't clutch the details. Spirit over letter." "Details are the point when money and names are involved," I said. I felt my pulse slow, not spike. I would not be tricked into a performance. A murmur came from the phone. Right, peace, that low tide of opinions that carries everything away." Mom held her chin just so. "We'll fix the tickets. It's all just logistics." "Are my name and confirmation number still attached anywhere?" I asked, turning the sentence like a key. Details aren't the point, she repeated. Healing is. Corvina reached across the table and covered my hand as if our skin touching could make this reasonable. Sis, you're strong. I'm not. This trip could fix me. I slid my hand away, gentle. I'm not medicine. Lower your voice, Mom warned, though I had barely lifted it. Thorne's knee tapped mine under the table. I'm here. Stay steady. I angled my phone to type a line in the Notes app. We did. Family. Don't be literal. Wider gift. Healing. I looked at the speaker as if it were a person and said, Uncle Ray, Aunt Shirley, for the record, I have not consented to any change. Don't bring lawyers into the living room, Uncle Ray grumbled. Yeah, lawyers aren't here, I said, but accuracy is. Mom stood. Enough. Come with me. She led us into the hallway closet like a magician ready to pull a rabbit from a hat. She reached up to the high shelf and pulled down a garment bag. The exact one from the boutique where Thorne and I had found an evening dress that made me feel like the version of myself I'd worked to become. Simple lines, not loud, a fit that belonged to my body rather than a trend. She unzipped the bag and rested her palm on the satin as if blessing bread. This will help you feel whole again, she said, and handed the bag to Corvina. For a second, sound drained from the corridor, as if the house had swallowed it. I looked at the fabric, then at the little white tag where the receipt was still stapled. The boutique prints them on heavy stock. I slid the pocket open and found Thorne's note, the one he'd tucked there the day we bought it. For a night we'll remember because we were together. I read the date and the last 4 digits of the card out loud. My voice did not shake. Purchased by Thorne, I said. For Maria. I'll keep it safe for you, Corvina said, her smile polished as a chrome bumper. That was bought for Maria, Thorne said, his voice soft but firm, the kind of tone he uses with new engineers when they're about to push untested code. And now it's for healing, Mom answered, as if language could make theft a hymn. I took out my phone and, in plain sight, photographed the tag, the stapled receipt, the note in Thorne's hand. Flash off, sound off, dignity on. Documented, I said, because sometimes one word is offense. Mom exhaled with a kind of wounded patience. You've always had such a head for rules. When people change the story, they also change the objects, I said, meeting her eyes just long enough. We went back to the kitchen. I placed the garment bag on the chair nearest me and spoke in lines you could etch on the back of a bill. No one uses my accounts. No one signs my name. If my name appears anywhere, it matches my consent. You owe the family a turn, Mom countered, trotting out the old arithmetic of love as ledger. Good fences make good neighbors, I said. I saw the proverb land and slide off. If there's a refund or a credit, Thorne added, it goes to Maria. Mom smoothed her skirt as if soothing a quilt. We're not fighting, we're just trying to get to a solution that lifts all boats. This isn't a regatta, I answered. We're done discussing this tonight. Aunt Shirley's voice tumbled out of the phone. Well, that was spirited. Uncle Ray muttered something about young people and their boundaries, and Mom hung up gently, as if ending the call could end the stance. I moved to the kitchen island, opened my email, and sent myself the photos with a subject line that could be searched a year from now. Cruise, healing justification, speakerphone present. In the body, I wrote the time, the place, who said what, dates, amounts, names, self-advocacy through documentation. Thorne stepped beside me. Leave the dress, I texted him, where he could read it without looking down. We'll take the truth. Before we left, I walked to the hallway and straightened the family photo again. This time, I left it slightly crooked, a small joke between me and the wall. I see you. I zipped my coat, felt the cool nylon under my fingers, and stepped out into the rain. Breath fogged the cold air. My shoulders lowered. We reached the car. The wipers swiped twice, then settled into their rhythm. I unlocked my phone to order a rideshare for Thorne's late meeting and saw the banner slide across the top of the screen, blue and cheerful. Your reservation has been modified. The cruise line's app icon winked at me like a joke that wasn't funny. I tapped, The formal night dining time had been changed to match their cabin's seating. Mine sat in gray text as if it were a memory the system permitted but did not recognize. I let the phone rest in my palm and listened to the soft hiss of rain on asphalt. If healing needs a thief, I said, not loudly, it's not healing. Then, in notes, I typed one line in caps so the future would see how tonight pivoted. Who signed? Tell me what you need, Thorne said. Witnesses, I answered. Then logs, then locks. We sat like that for a minute, window glass blurred by rain, streetlight trembling in the puddle by the curb, the small quiet that comes when resolve rearranges the furniture inside you. I closed the app, slid the phone into my coat pocket, and put my hand on the door handle. Ready? He asked. Ready, I said. Let's go home. I have emails to write. Morning came gray and steady, the kind of Portland light that makes everything look like it was washed once and hung to dry. I wrapped my hands around a mug that had lost its gloss years ago and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. No speeches, no sighs. Work. I created a new folder and named it Cruise, Evidence, Simple Name, Simple Purpose. I dragged in last night's photos, the stapled boutique receipt, the garment tag, the shot of the hallway photo, and the screenshots of Mom's texts from both nights. In notes, I opened a page titled Verbs and typed a list that made my shoulders drop. Who booked, who reassigned, who said healing, who accepted, who widened a promise. Verbs tell you who picked up the wrench. The cruise app loaded like molasses. I scrolled the change history and matched the timestamps to Mom's messages. There it was, an edit logged within the same hour she had said, "We'll fix the tickets." People don't change time. Time changes people's alibis. I printed the confirmation to PDF and saved it with the date in the file name because I've learned a file that says what it is gets read. Cloud backup on. Thumb drive plugged in. One copy for now, one copy for later, me who might need it. Coffee at noon? Thorne texted. After the bank, I typed back. Priorities. Money first, feelings second. I put the phone face down and whispered the old American line my grandfather used after a bad contractor job. Trust, but verify. That would be the operating system today. While the printer chewed through paper, a familiar ache drifted in. The old theme music my family used when they wanted me to step out of my own life. Be a team player, take the longer way, give the solo to someone who needed it more. I didn't have to list the specifics to know their shape. In high school, I'd been asked to yield a solo for harmony, then clapped from the audience seats while my voice sat on my tongue. In college, I was told to let my sister have the closer sublet because I was resilient. I took a longer bus route and 2 jobs and made it work. At holidays, my dishes were extras. Hers were traditions. When I drove Mom to appointments for a stretch of hard months, the retelling credited the family. If I asked for clarity, the chorus rose, "Don't keep score. Be flexible. We're all doing our best." Virtue became a tax we levied on the quiet child. Last night's healing was just that story with better lighting and a fancier price tag. Enough. Proof, not poetry. I slid the printed pages into a cheap manila folder and grabbed my keys. The credit union lobby smelled like wet wool and toner. A line of neighbors, retirees with neat check registers, a young couple whispering about mortgage rates, formed behind the "Please wait here" plaque. When it was my turn, I smiled at the teller, slid my ID under the glass, and said in the voice I use when a student tries to skip steps on a lab, "I need itemized recent charges tied to my card ending in 1247 and any affiliated merchant descriptors for Paradise Cruise Lines." "Of course," she said. Her name tag read Emily. She clicked through a screen, then another. "Travel, right? Do you want alerts set up for anything over a certain amount?" "Yes," I said. "Travel or luxury merchants over $50, text and email." If banks can control risk with settings, I can control a family with settings. She nodded, typed, and printed a thin stream of paper that sounded like a zipper. "Here's a ledger for the past week." 2 entries blinked up at me from the gray countertop. Deposit, stateroom upgrade, onboard experience, dining package. Same day as Mom's healing speech. I felt the bottom of the world tilt, then right itself. I kept my voice even. Is there any authorized user listed on this card? Emily shook her head. Just you. Merchant descriptors? I asked, and she printed a second page with timestamps, merchant IDs, and the tiny breadcrumbs banks keep for their own memories. She initialed the bottom, small legal courage. I did not authorize those charges, I said, careful to look at the security camera on the ceiling and then back at Emily. I'd like to begin with seller contact as you suggest and keep formal dispute open. Could a supervisor initial this copy as well? Absolutely, she said. A man in a gray tie came over, glanced at the entries, and signed with a neat, efficient hand. I pulled my phone up, angled it so the desk camera could see, and photographed the ledger. Documenting my non-authorization, I said aloud for the record I was making. I cross-checked the times on my phone. During those charges, I was at work in third period. My badge scan log would show the exact minute I walked into the building. I emailed the photos to my alias account with a subject line I wouldn't have to translate a week from now. Charges connected to healing reallocation. Then I thanked both employees, shook hands, and walked out into air that smelled like the inside of an umbrella. I sat in the car, the folder on my lap, and called the cruise line. Guest services, this is Jordan, a bright voice said. Hi, Jordan, I said, matching the brightness with a steadier temperature. I'm calling as the card holder of record. I need to confirm the account holder of record and the user who accepted recent itinerary changes tied to my guest ID. May I have your booking number? He asked. I read it twice. And your full name and date of birth? I gave him what he needed. For your recording, I added, please note the time and your name. I heard the soft click of a keyboard. I also need a call reference number when we're done. Of course. He clicked again. I'm seeing that changes were accepted online from a device that is not registered to your profile. I breathed once to keep my tone where it belonged. I'd like a copy of the audit log sent to my email on file. If there's a data request form to sign, send that too. There is a process, he hedged. We can open a ticket and escalate. Please do, I said. And for what it's worth, as the card holder of record, I'm requesting those logs under my transaction dispute. Professionalism opens doors yelling can't. He read back a ticket number, and I repeated it for the recording. Thank you, Jordan. I have ticket 736. I finished the digits. I'll look for the email shortly. Anything else? He asked. Yes, I said. Please add a note requiring two-factor confirmation from my phone number for any pairing or dining reassignment tied to my guest ID. I'll add that, he said. The keyboard clicked again. You should receive an automated confirmation. I saved his email into the folder I'd made, cruise, evidence, vendor, and locked the car. The drizzle had softened to a mist, and every human in Portland seemed to be wearing the same jacket. I drove to a quiet coffee shop off Hawthorne, the one with the loud grinder and the gentle music, and chose a table by the window where the overhead heater made the glass blur. Thorne arrived with 2 cups and a face that had learned something overnight. He set the Americano in front of me, and I slid the ledger across the table. He read in silence, jaw set the way it gets when he's reviewing a failing test run. I need to say this out loud, I told him. Hesitation is human. Endorsement is a choice. I need you to stand where the facts are. I'm sorry for last night, he said. I was trying to defuse a bomb by ignoring it, which is not a strategy. I stand with you. Next time you ask those questions, I'll say it first. I nodded once. My plan: secure evidence, confront with dates, and if needed, file dispute and a police report for unauthorized use. I didn't blink when I said the last part. Some words have to be said without apology so that they can do their job. Say when, he said. For 60-year-old me, I said with a small smile. And for Aunt Shirley if she lives that long, paper beats memories in a family fight. We both laughed, quick and brief, like people who know the difference between a laugh and a bargain. We agreed to keep our engagement plans steady and set aside talk of the guest list. Love doesn't fix ledgers, it reads them together. My phone vibrated, not with a text, but with the slightly different buzz of a serious email. Subject line: Cruise guest services, your data request. A second email stacked on top. Manifest, preliminary changes attached. PDF. I hovered my thumb over the preview. The cafe Wi-Fi was open, and all my good habits lined up shoulder to shoulder. Not here, I said. Security first. Forward to me and your alias, Thorne said. We'll open it at your place. If Healing borrowed my money, I told the window where the rain glowed like pins, it might have borrowed my name. I used my phone's share sheet to rename the file. Do not open until home. Witness present. Then I put the phone face down and looked at the man who had learned to listen for what I meant the first time. Okay, he said. Let's go home and let the paper do the talking. We didn't open the email at the cafe. We drove home with the heater on low and the wipers metronoming across the windshield, then carried our cups into my apartment like two people bringing in evidence from the rain. I set the laptop on the dining table, plugged in the thumb drive I'd labeled with a strip of blue painter's tape, and clicked the file whose subject line had dared me, Preliminary Manifest. I told myself to read aloud so my nerves couldn't edit the facts. Stateroom linkage, I said, scrolling. Guest IDs, dining seating groups, accessibility flags, special occasion tags. The columns looked like tidy neighborhoods. No pairing for me and you, I added, though the table didn't need my commentary. Thorne stood behind my chair with one hand resting on the back like he was steadying more than wood. I highlighted the modification times and matched them to last night's dinner window. If this is coincidence, I said, it wears choreography like a suit. I opened the screen recorder. Not screenshots, I said for my own benefit, context. I scrolled slowly from top to bottom, letting the audit footer sit in frame long enough to read twice. Then I saved the file to the evidence folder, copied it to the thumb drive, and slid the drive into a small envelope I keep for things I cannot afford to misplace. Paper beats memory. Backups beat panic. What's step 2? Thorne asked. Find out who clicked accept, I said, and who asked you to stand alone. As if the line had a sense of humor, his phone lit on the table. Mom. The name glowed like a porch light you don't want to walk toward. He looked at me. I nodded. He tapped speaker. Thorne? Mom's voice arrived warm and managerial. Be the bigger person. Don't get legal on me. This is family. Hi, Drusilla, he said, using her name like a level. You're on speaker with me and Maria. There was a half beat. Oh, she said lightly. Well, real men protect the fragile. We need you to give Corvina this reset. I picked up my pen and wrote the time at the top of a page, 5:27 p.m. Then, under it, I wrote her sentence word for word. If you love Maria, you'll give Corvina this reset. Let me speak to you without Maria for 10 minutes, she continued. We already told the family she agreed. My thumb tapped the phone's clock, and I jotted the seconds. I didn't interrupt. I let the phrases collect like beads I would later slide into a column labeled What Was Actually Said. Her script kept coming. Don't make this ugly. Don't involve outsiders. We can handle this as adults, the way people say adult when they mean silent. Drusilla, Thorne said, steady. I won't make commitments without Maria present. The booking was my gift to her. Corvina has had a rough year, Mom answered, the compassion lacquered on. Maria will be fine. She's always fine. I'm on the line, I said evenly. Any decision regarding my name, my funds, or my plans happens with me on the line. Anything else is unauthorized. Don't turn this into a courtroom, honey, she said, the word honey softened with warning. We're doing what's right. We're doing what's accurate, I replied. That's the best kind of right. I'll call you later, Thorne, she said, as if I hadn't spoken. I'm available when Maria is available, he said. Together. Silence, then a sigh engineered to imply martyrdom. Think about it, she said, and hung up. I let the air settle. 5 minutes, 12 seconds, I said, writing the duration on the page. I'm emailing this summary to myself. I dictated the subject line into my phone so there'd be no confusion later. Call with Drusilla. Pressure to separate decision-making from Maria. Evidence first, anger later. I pulled the manifest back up, set it beside my notes, and drew a 4-column table in a fresh page. Change, time, who benefits, who loses access. I filled each blank with what the paper and the call agreed upon. The dining reassignment coincided with her "healing needs a seat" speech. The special occasion tag moved. My name dimmed in places where theirs brightened. I wrote a short list in another corner, the exact questions I would ask in any room with witnesses. Who authorized any spending from my card? Who submitted the device acceptance? What phone number approved pairing changes? Not why. Why is a rabbit hole? Who is a door? For older me later, I said without smiling, write names as they self-identify. Don't paraphrase. I printed the call summary and slid it across to Thorne. He initialed the bottom right corner with today's date, a quiet anchor, notarized by habit if not by law. I set a calendar event for the following night. Family clarification, financial itinerary, Maria plus Thorne present. No details, no debate, just a block of time with our names both visible. Then my laptop rang. "Hey, cuz," Lazara said when I answered the FaceTime call. Her face appeared in a square bordered by the kind of lamp you buy when you stop renting. "You free for 2 minutes? This'll help." "Always for you," I said, and angled the screen so Thorne could see. She didn't waste pleasantries. "Last night, Mom had a group call. She told everyone you insisted your sister take the cruise to heal. People clapped like it was a graduation." She winced. I wrote down the time and who was on. "I'll text it." "Please," I said. "And thank you." "Here's the phrase," she went on, reading from her notepad. "Maria has a fiancé. She'll have other trips." She looked up. "I know you, and I know that line didn't come from your mouth." "No," I said. It did not. A buzz. 2 messages popped up, a photo of a page with neat handwriting, names and times, and a screenshot of a family chat where confetti emojis round-tripped under "so proud of her sacrifice." I felt a ridge of heat and breathed until it smoothed. "Can I list you as a witness if this becomes a card dispute or a police report?" I asked. "It may. Use my full name and my number," she said. "I love your mom, but I won't humor a fiction." "I appreciate that more than I can say," I told her. "I'll file this under witness with today's date." "Good," she said. "And Maria, take care of your heart while you take care of the paper." She blew a kiss and hung up. I saved her photo as 2025 Manifest Witness Lazara, JPG, and the chat screenshot with the date in the title. Evidence is a gift to your future self. I felt myself step into a kind of quiet that doesn't come from resignation. It comes from having a map. "Now we send the warning shot," I said. I opened a new email and addressed it to Mom and my sister, CC'd Thorne, BCC'd my alias. No heat, no spines of sarcasm, just sentences with a job to do. I wrote, "I do not consent to any use of my name, accounts, or gifts without my written approval." As of today at 5:12 p.m., the manifest shows changes dissociating me from my fiancé's dining group. Charges on my card ending 1247 on date were unauthorized. Documentation has been initiated at my bank. Any further attempts to separate Thorne from me in decision-making will be treated as bad faith. If unauthorized use continues, I will file a formal dispute and a police report. I prefer reconciliation. I require accountability. I attached 3 PDFs: ledger excerpt, call summary, manifest highlights. Then 1 closing line. Healing cannot require theft or erasure. I clicked send and turned the phone face down. Sometimes adult love is a quiet inbox with receipts. We stood in the kitchen for a minute, listening to the furnace fan push warm air through the vents. I reached for a pen, drew a line across the bottom of the page where my list ended, and wrote the word enough. Then Thorne's phone lit on the counter, bright as a flare. It wasn't an email. It was a text from Mom. "Come by without Maria. We'll finalize details tonight." Another ping. A calendar invite bled onto both our screens. Farewell dinner for Corvina, hosted by Mom. In the notes, Maria generously insisted Corvina take the cruise. I felt the floor tilt, then leveled it myself. If they go public with a lie, I said, I'll go public with the truth in the same room. I picked up my phone and typed to Thorn. We attend together. We ask questions on record. Bring a charged phone. I'm with you, he replied, standing an inch closer than he had a minute before. I added one more item to the folder I'd been building, a sign-in sheet template with columns for name, time, witness. If they wanted a show, I would bring a ledger. I printed 2 copies, slid them into the front of the manila folder, and checked the ink level on my printer, because that's the kind of grown-up I have become. In the evening light, the dining table looked like a desk at a courthouse. Nothing dramatic, just orderly. I turned the manifest one more time, pressed the creases flat, and felt my shoulders settle. The room did not get bigger, I did. 2 evenings later, Thorn drove while I balanced a manila folder on my knees and watched the city smear into ribbons of wet light. I had printed everything that mattered, the manifest pages where my name dimmed, the bank ledger with the 2 charges that didn't belong to me, the summary of Mom's ambush call, each page dated and initialed on the bottom corner. Adult armor doesn't clank, it fits under a coat. The wipers kept time, and I rehearsed one sentence in my head for when the room started to tilt. I will not be erased from records I paid for. The community hall sat behind a church with a parking lot that always looked bigger under rain, and tonight string lights blinked through the mist like they were trying to butter us into goodwill. Inside, the smell was potluck and polish. Green beans with bacon, scalloped potatoes in foil pans, someone's famous sheet cake. A raffle table held a candle basket and a quilt. White cloths draped round tables. Neighbors waved. Family friends squeezed my elbow. So proud of you, honey, a woman from Mom's book club said as if I'd won something. Supportive little sister, another murmured. I smiled without offering the story they wanted to hear. The trick with family lies is simple. They age faster than the truth. I wasn't here to fight shadows. I was here to switch on the light. At a folding table by the door, a volunteer in a cardigan kept a paper roster secure with a salt shaker. I spelled my last name anyway, because habit is a seatbelt. She slid her finger down the alphabet, then paused. I have guest of honor, Corvina plus companion, she said. The pen hovered. No, Maria. Do you have me down as a guest anywhere? I asked. Calm travels further than volume, she blinked. No, just your fiancé with Corvina's party. She glanced up, cheeks pink. Sorry, that's what your mother gave us. Thorn stepped forward before my mouth could open. I'm not her companion, he said evenly. I'm Maria's fiancé. Oh, the volunteer whispered, as if a small wind had exited the room. She looked at the line again, like it might rearrange itself. It didn't. I took out my phone and framed the roster with the date in the corner. One click. Not clandestine, deliberate. Printed ink makes erasure look tidy. Hearts don't get the memo. When your name vanishes on paper, I said softly enough that only Thorn could hear. Save it. Lies leave fingerprints. We found 2 seats near the middle. Mom worked the room like a fundraiser, her mouth set in compassionate leadership. Corvina stood near the cake table in a dress that caught light and approval. Thorn slid the chair out for me, and I set my folder on the tablecloth. If you decide to speak, he said under breath, I'll anchor the end of each sentence. I'll keep them short, I said, not smiling. Mom took the microphone, and the hum of conversation fell to cutlery and coughs. Thank you all, she began, warm and practiced. Tonight we lift up Corvina's healing journey. Family sacrifice, love in action. This is what it looks like. Applause rose on cue. I have to share something beautiful. Maria, she touched her heart, insisted her sister take the cruise. Isn't that grace? The clapping again, louder this time, like hail on a tin roof. I felt the clap as a slap and kept my hands in my lap. They just published the lie, I whispered. Thorn's fingers found mine under the tablecloth and squeezed twice, our signal from the library. Stay the plan. Mom loved a microphone. She let the room breathe before she offered it more story. "We talk about love," she continued, "but love is what we do. Tonight, we toast what we do." Pageant tears collected at the corner of Corvina's eyes, dabbed with a folded napkin. She was very good at looking like she didn't want attention while standing under a spotlight. I stood. No sudden scrape of chair, no clatter. Just knees, then feet, then spine. "I need to correct the record," I said, and I didn't need the microphone. Sound travels when it doesn't apologize for existing. Heads turned. Forks stopped. Mom's smile froze and reattached itself an inch to the left. "Sit down, honey," she said into the mic, calm and warning braided together. "Don't embarrass the family." "The family embarrassed itself when it lied in my name," I said, clear as a bell in January. I held up my phone so the volunteer could recognize her paper. At the door, the roster lists guest of honor, Corvina, plus companion. My name is missing. I did not insist. "You're making this dramatic," Corvina said, voice smooth enough to spread on bread. "Don't ruin what is kind." Thorne spoke so the sound would meet my words and stop there. "This isn't drama," he said. "This is misrepresentation." I opened my folder and removed a single page. The bank ledger shows 2 charges on my card, stateroom upgrade and dining package, on the same day this narrative started. I did not authorize them. I laid the page flat on the podium like an offering and stepped back. Anyone may read. A murmur ran through the room, the kind that starts as confusion and ends as weather. I lifted the manifest highlight next, a neat block of times and tables that didn't open to interpretation. "The dining reassignment matches the hour this healing story was announced," I said. "In this country, reputation is credit. You don't lend it without consent." I kept my tone conversational. People listen to conversation more than they obey instruction. Mom tried to reclaim the narrative. "Maria is strong," she said brightly. "She insisted her sister go so she could heal." "I will not be erased from records I paid for," I answered, and let the sentence stand on its own legs. My fiancé is mine, not a prop for anyone else's healing. Future changes in my name or accounts will be treated as fraud. Someone near the punch bowl said, "Well, like the beginning of a new thought." A cousin looked at her shoes. Aunt Shirley stared at the ceiling, blinking. A neighbor in a VFW hat nodded once, just once, and kept nodding to himself as if his head had decided something his mouth didn't need to share. "Let's not air laundry," Mom said, the microphone clutched now like a towel. "I came to celebrate honesty," I said. "That's the only farewell I'll give tonight." Silence followed, not the awkward kind, the useful kind. It filled the hall like fog after a squall. People reached for their water glasses because hands want jobs. A child coughed. The string lights reflected in each spoon as if a night sky had fallen into flatware. Then motion resumed. The raffle resumed. Someone announced the potato salad had nuts for those allergic. And all the while, a second conversation moved under the first one. She brought paper. She didn't yell. The page had times. The charge had her card. Where was her name? I gathered my documents without hurrying and slid them into the folder. My heart thudded, but not like fear, like the clap of a door sealing correctly for the first time in a long time. Mom spoke low into the mic, thinking it was off. "Ungrateful," she said, and handed it to the volunteer, who pretended not to hear. Corvina stalked toward the restroom, eyes shining for herself. Thorne and I walked toward the exit. The drizzle had softened outside. The air smelled like damp cotton and metal. We paused under the overhang where the smoking crowd used to stand before the church changed the rules. "In families," I said, exhaling what I didn't need to carry home, "love without boundaries becomes control. Tonight, I put up a fence." "Good fences don't make enemies," Thorne said, opening the car door. "They keep neighbors honest." We were 3 steps from the curb when my phone buzzed with a tone I already recognized. A push notification slid across the screen, polite as a tap on the shoulder. "Your cruise reservation has been updated." I tapped. The app opened to a seating chart that should have been boring. It wasn't. Under dinner companions, the text read, Corvina plus Thorn. My name was gone. Again. Not ink this time. Pixels. I felt my breath stop, count to 3, and resume. They're not finished, I said, eyes on the little line of text that pretended to be neutral. Neither are you, he said. Not a question, a sentence with a back on it. I took a screenshot for the file and slid the phone into my coat pocket. The building behind us hummed with a party pretending not to notice what it was built on, the way some houses pretend they don't have foundations. The streetlight clicked on with a tiny sound. A bus sighed at the stop. My folder rested under my arm with a weight that had begun to feel less like burden and more like spine. Tomorrow, I said, opening the passenger door, we take the evidence to a table they can't ignore. I woke with the phone where I'd left it, face up on the nightstand, the cruise app still open to the screen I hadn't wanted to believe. Under Dinner Companions, it read, Corvina plus Thorn. The apartment was quiet enough to hear heat ticking in the baseboards. I didn't let myself sigh. I sat up, reached for the device, and took a fresh screen recording that captured the time in the corner and the server clock inside the app. Evidence first. I texted Thorn one sentence. No deleting anything, screenshots first. His reply came before the bubbles finished pulsing. Copying now. Coffee dripped in the kitchen while I opened my laptop and made a simple spreadsheet. Field, who changed, when, device, if shown, evidence link. I pasted the screen recording URL from my cloud folder and then plugged in a thumb drive because one copy is for today, another is for the day. Someone says, I don't see it. I added a note on the top line in bold, PST versus cruise server time, because time zones make honest people look confused. I labeled the day's plan in a sticky note, 3 arrows in a row. Collect, notify, boundary, no venting. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. By mid-morning, the sky had that pewter look that makes Portland feel like a photograph. My phone pinged the way it does when a post gets traction. Corvina had gone public, a crisp shot of e-tickets on her countertop, the little balcony icon circled in marker. The caption read, Finally some healing time. She'd tagged Mom and, subtle but not subtle, Thorn's company page, not Thorn, like tossing a pebble into his office pond to watch the rings. I enlarged the image and let my eye do the work. The PNR code was partially visible. The departure date matched ours. Formal night was mentioned in a bullet point at the bottom, the same language my confirmation used. The comments came quick. Bless your heart. You deserve this. Your little sis is an angel. The shape of the narrative kept itself tidy. My name existed as a rumor about generosity. I did not answer strangers who needed a story for their lunch break. I screen recorded the post, saved a PDF with the time and URL, took a still image that included the handle and like count, and dropped the files into my folder. Then I added a line to the spreadsheet. Social post implies consent. False. Archived. I spoke to the empty room the way I speak to a classroom on quiz day. Love isn't a lottery. If something needs a thief to call itself healing, it isn't healing. I remembered a line I'd heard at a town hall once. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and thought, today sunlight means screenshots. On the drive to Thorns, the clouds sank lower and the wipers kept their appointment. I parked outside and sent him the archive link so our copies would match. He opened the door with his laptop tucked under his arm. Already mirrored, he said. Everything with timestamps. Good, I answered. Now we call the vendor. We sat at his dining table with our phones on speaker. Guest services answered with a cheerful tone that didn't mind living on hold music. I gave the ticket number from yesterday and asked for 2 things. Please attach the public post I'm emailing right now to my case file. Its caption implies my consent. And please begin an audit log extract of pairing changes with device fingerprints. Name, employee ID, and call reference number, please, I added, and repeated them back for their recording so there would be no mystery later about who said what. I also request a temporary lock on my guest ID so no reassignment happens without multi-factor confirmation from my phone. We can place a security hold for 48 hours, the rep said. It will require a callback to the verified number for any changes. Perfect, I said. Please confirm that in writing. I watched for the email, filed it into Cruise, evidence vendor, and renamed it with today's date and the phrase audit log request S3 ref, because names that speak are the only ones that count. At noon, my phone chimed again, and this one found a tender place. Mom had posted a glossy photo from the farewell, her arm around Corvina, head bent toward her like a blessing, and just beyond their shoulders, Thorn near the end of the table. I was there too, technically, caught as a blur in a mirror behind them like a mistake the camera apologized for. The caption read, "Family first, healing together." The comments applauded on schedule. "Maria is so selfless." "What a gift you gave your sister." "This is what family looks like." I felt the old familiar heat rise and let it pass without taking anything with it. A text from Thorn arrived the next second. I didn't consent to that caption. I answered, "Neither did I. We answer as adults." I took legal-style screenshots that captured the handle, the timestamp, and the count. I archived the image as a PDF. Then I wrote a DM that was polite enough to be read and specific enough to matter. "Please remove any implication that I insisted or that Thorn is attending as Corvina's companion. The statement is inaccurate and harms us." After that, I sent an email to Mom and Corvina, CCing Thorn, attaching the post and referencing the open audit ticket. One line stood alone where it belonged. "Accuracy protects everyone. Kindly update within 24 hours. "Now the boundary with teeth," I said, half to myself. I wrote a brief notice, no adjectives, just rails. "Do not use my name or likeness to imply consent to reallocation. Do not pair my fiancé with another traveler in public messages. Remove or correct the posts within 24 hours, or I will A. Add them to my bank dispute, B. File a written statement with the cruise line, and C. Seek advice on defamation by implication." I attached the ledger excerpt and the manifest highlight to show non-consent wasn't a feeling. It was a set of dates with numbers beside them. I sent the notice from my Records Maria alias so the thread would be neat when a stranger read it later. I printed a hard copy for my folder because paper has a way of staying where you put it. "Good fences make good neighbors," I said, and realized I'd finally learned how to build one. By mid-afternoon, the to-do list turned into housekeeping that mattered. I changed passwords on the family cloud and removed shared album access I had allowed back when we were still a family that trusted each other with vacation photos. I set bank alerts for any travel or luxury merchant over $50. I checked the cruise app settings and turned on push notices for every single change a person could make. I shared the evidence folder read only with Thorn and watched the little blue check that meant our copies matched. Then I wrote a 4-item checklist in a thin Sharpie on the back of an envelope. Phones charged, USB in purse, printed one-pagers ready, eat something green. Hope is not a strategy. A list is. We drove by Mom's place because a habit wanted to. I didn't go in. I didn't even text. I sat at the curb and looked at the light in her kitchen, thinking about how many nights that light had meant safety. I boxed my breathing the way I teach it. In 4, hold 4, out 4. Calm isn't surrender, it's fuel. "Ready?" Thorn asked, not to go inside, but to drive past without flinching. I nodded, and he pulled away. Back at my apartment, the afternoon thinned into that slack hour when all the emails you sent come home to roost. The cruise line's confirmation arrived with the lock in place. No changes without my phone lighting up first. My bank sent a second text. "Alert! Travel merchant charge over $50 will generate notice to this number." I felt something in my ribs relax that hadn't been there in months. Then, the evening started to try me. Thorn's phone lit with a message from Mom. "Drop by without Maria. Let's finalize the healing plan." The phrase sat perfectly formed, like it had been practiced in a mirror. It was followed by a second ping, a DM from Corvina to Thorn, a dinner photo, cropped tight, just the two of them in the frame, and a single red heart at the bottom. He held the screen toward me because transparency is a habit we learned on purpose. "This isn't about feelings anymore," I said, tapping the folder on the table. "It's about choices on paper. Then we answer on paper," he said. I sent one sentence to both of them, the kind that becomes a hinge because it has weight, and hinges only work when they're solid. All decisions about our trip are made by us, together, in writing. I printed one more copy of our 2-line statement from the library and folded it into his wallet and mine. Quiet rituals make later loud moments easier to bear. The last thing I did before the day ended was sit with the spreadsheet until it looked like something a stranger could read. Each row had a link. Each link matched a time. Each time matched a decision someone made with my name. I scrolled to the top and typed a title that didn't try to be clever. Status as of today. Then I closed the laptop and set it on the chair, not the floor. When your life keeps getting moved around, you learn to put things where you can reach them in the dark. The phone buzzed one more time before we turned in. Thorne showed me the screen. I nodded once. Hesitation is human, I said. Endorsement is a choice. He put his phone face down next to mine. I turned off the lamp. The baseboards ticked the way they do when heat moves where it should. I laid my palm on the folder, felt the thickness of paper that said who I was, and let the room get quiet on purpose. Late morning light poured through a high window at Multnomah County Central Library, the kind of Portland sunbreak that shows up after a night of rain and pretends it was always on the schedule. I had reserved a small study room with glass walls and a door that didn't quite latch unless you meant it. 2 chairs, a table, a clock that ticked just loud enough to keep people honest. Neutral ground discourages theatrics. I texted Thorne. Library, glass room. We talk with receipts, not reactions. He answered, I'll be there. I laid my folder in the center like a placemat, manifest excerpts, the bank ledger, prints of the social posts, my notice of misrepresentation, the call summary from Mom's ambush. I put my phone on silent and face down except for the timestamp I knew I'd check. Then I added one more chair and texted my aunt. Evadne, can you stop by? Quiet witness. She replied with a thumbs up and a time. I opened my notes app and typed the date, the room number, and the reason. Family clarification. Today wasn't about feelings. It was about choices tied to names and money. When they arrived, I stood, because respect is free, and I like how it feels in my spine. Thorne set his phone face down without being asked. Evadne placed a small, thin envelope on the table and gave me the look you give someone about to tell the truth. Not dramatic, just sturdy. 3 rules, I said, and I counted them on my fingers. We speak only for ourselves. We cite dates and receipts. We make one clear ask at the end. I waited for a nod from each of them, the way you do in a classroom before you hand out a test. Agreed, Thorne said. Agreed, Evadne echoed, and took a sticky note from her purse, writing the time at the top with her neat teacher handwriting. I rested my palm on the folder. 1 sentence to locate the conflict, I added. My cruise, my name, and my fiancé were reassigned under the word healing. I didn't say again, although it wanted to be there. To keep us out of the mud of relitigating, I slid a single page to the middle. Bank charges with dates and amounts. The manifest pairing changes with their exact timestamps. The URLs and times of the public posts implying my consent. A pen sat beside the paper like a flagpole without a flag. This pen, I said, is available to anyone who wants to initial, but we don't have to use it. It's a symbol that we can. I breathed in for 4, held for 4, out for 4. Adults don't have to be loud to be clear. I tapped the ledger and the manifest with a finger that no longer trembled. Thorne, I said, and I kept my voice warm but direct. Where do you stand when the facts stand still? He looked at the paper. He looked at me. His eyes dropped once to the face-down rectangle of his phone as if it had called his name. A muted preview flashed across the black glass, Mom's name, then the screen went dark again. I hate conflict, he said, and his voice landed somewhere between apology and weather report. I wanted everyone to calm down first. Calm is not consent, I answered. Silence is not consent. I made the next questions as small and exact as I could make them. Small and exact questions don't leave any exits. Do you consent to your gift being reassigned? No, he said. Did you authorize my name being removed? No. Will you stand next to me when I say no? He hesitated in the doorway of a sentence. I didn't intend. Intent is not outcome. I said, gentle but firm, the way I talk to students who confuse effort with accuracy. He sat a little straighter. I stand with you. Then softer, to the part of me that had waited too long for the obvious. I should have said it sooner. I opened notes and typed the time, 11:42 a.m. For the record, I read aloud, at 11:42 a.m., Thorne confirmed he stands with Maria. He does not consent to reassignment. I turned the screen so he could see it. Is that accurate? That's right, he said. While we breathed through that small, necessary click of alignment, his phone buzzed, not loud, just enough to insist. He turned it over. A message from Mom marbled the preview. Step outside without Maria. A second bubble climbed under it. Be the bigger person. I didn't flinch. I let the message sit between us like a test we both already knew the answer to. We are bigger when we're together, I said, and looked at the glass wall that kept us visible to the librarians. Triangulation thrives in secrecy. Light and witnesses starve it. Thorne placed his phone face down again and slid it 2 inches away from him. No side meetings, he said. It wasn't loud, but it was large. I wrote, 11:49 a.m. Triangulation attempt. Declined on record. I nudged the pen again so it sat equidistant from all of us. No one reached for it. The room had shifted anyway. Decisions now had daylight. May I? Evadne asked, and when I nodded, she opened her thin envelope. She took out several printed pages and a postcard-sized summary card she'd titled, in her teacher way, Pattern, Verse, Event. I don't like piling on, she said, but patterns belong to everyone, and so does the truth. I love your mother. I also refuse her fiction. She read dates, not stories. December 3 years ago, she began. Holiday logistics. Maria purchased and prepared 2 main dishes. Group email credited the family while praising Corvina's centerpiece as the night's heart. She lifted her eyes to check that I was breathing, then lowered them again. Spring fundraiser at church. Maria organized, kept the books, and stayed to clean. Public thanks on Sunday credited Corvina's vision and your mother's leadership. She turned a page. Group text from last week, which I printed. Maria always yields, she's resilient. She slid the page across so we could see the line in black and white. It hit like a small stone against a window, not enough to shatter, enough to sound. And this, she added, planning thread from the night before the farewell dinner. Your mother wrote, Maria insisted the cruise go to her sister. That's the wording. She put the last page down and aligned its corner with the others, an act of respect for paper that felt like an act of respect for me. She handed the summary card to Thorne, Pattern versus Dazed Event, and placed a copy of each page on my side of the table. I filed them into a new folder named Pattern Over Time, because judges, HR offices, and banks don't believe volume. They believe dates. Thank you, I said. It wasn't big enough, but it was true. I took a single sheet and wrote 2 sentences that had waited their turn. We do not consent to reassignment of name, gift, or pairing, I read as I wrote. We will speak jointly in future family conversations. I slid the paper to Thorne. He initialed beside each line and added today's date. I photographed the page and emailed it to my alias and to him with a subject line that would sort well later. Joint commitment, consent required. Next steps, I said. We send this commitment to Mom and Corvina in writing. If pairing changes again, we escalate with the cruise line and the bank. Dispute plus vendor audit. I lifted my eyes so he'd see the posture, not just the plan. This is not war. This is accuracy. He nodded. Accuracy I can do. We gathered our things. I thanked Evadne, and she touched my arm in that quick, second-born way we share. A gesture that says, I see the ledger, and I see you. Noon pushed through the western window, brighter than it had any right to in March. We stepped out into a light rain, the kind that doesn't deserve the name, but still finds your cheeks. The library steps shone. On the sidewalk, my phone buzzed, the cruise app banner sliding across the top, as if the day had been waiting for the moment. Pairing updated, it read. Again. I opened it with a steadiness that wasn't performance. A fresh reassignment request sat on the page, awaiting acceptance, from a device that wasn't mine. I turned the screen so Thorne could see it. He took one look and squared his shoulders, a small motion I felt in my own bones. "Let's make it impossible to accept without us," he said. "When someone keeps moving the line," I answered, "you stop asking, you anchor it." He reached for my folder without being told, like a man who had learned which things mattered in which order. We walked toward the curb together, the glass wall of the library behind us reflecting three figures: a woman choosing paper over permission, a man learning what a promise sounds like when it grows a spine, and a witness who believed dates more than declarations. The clock tower on the corner rang the hour as if to underline our pace. I didn't need the bell. I had the time written down. Morning arrived like a ledger, lines to fill, columns to balance. I opened the shared folder from the library meeting and confirmed the two-line commitment we'd signed: no reassignment without both of us, joint speech in family conversations. I toggled the permissions to read only for Thorne and checked the audit trail. No edits. I set a checklist on the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like an apple: logs, MFA, vendor lock, alternate pay method, cabin search. 5 boxes, 5 outcomes. On the counter, my phone still showed the Cruise app banner from yesterday. Pairing awaiting acceptance. I did not touch it. When a system keeps its own diary, you don't scribble in the margins. I exported my phone's location history for the last 72 hours to a CSV and dropped it into the evidence folder because third-party corroboration beats memory every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Then I recorded a short clip on my screen that walked through the file paths. Future me will thank present me when someone asks, "Where did you put it?" If the line keeps moving, anchor the paper. I drafted an email to Cruise Security Data Compliance and read it out loud once to check for heat. Requesting device audit and IP logs associated with recent pairing acceptances involving my guest ID, I wrote, "Please enforce MFA for any acceptance and place a do not change flag. No pairing, dining, or stateroom reassignment without two-factor confirmation from my phone, plus a written reply to this address." I attached the ticket number from earlier. On the bank side, I left my main card open for disputes and applied for a new travel card strictly for today's booking. 10 minutes later, a virtual number appeared in my banking app. I set text alerts for anything over $10 and merchant category, travel, lodging, took a screenshot of the settings page, and printed it. Paper beats promises. I compressed the last week into a one-page timeline: date, event, who benefited, who lost access, and saved it as a PDF because judges, HR reps, and banks read one page. I did not DM my family. Silent strategy goes: document first, lock second, act third. Calm isn't surrender. It's a procedure. I called the cruise line's security desk and asked the rep to append a new case note. Please invalidate any pending acceptance for my profile and enforce two-factor plus callback. Confirm by email. I asked for her full name, employee ID, and call reference, and repeated them back for their recording. Then I cited the public misrepresentation posts already in the file and emphasized what this was: consumer consent, cardholder rights. She confirmed a temporary security hold for 24 to 48 hours while the audit was compiled. "Put that in writing, please," I said, and the email landed a minute later. I forwarded it to my records Maria alias with the subject line, "SEC hold confirmed, no changes without 2FA. I moved the message into the vendor folder and checked off vendor lock on the list. The magnet clicked as I nudged it up the metal. The next call had to be clean: no family-adjacent agencies, no names that could echo. I Googled nothing. I used a card from a travel agent a coworker had recommended for no-drama corporate families, the kind who want their seats where they want them and don't post about it later. When she answered, her voice had the confident efficiency of someone who likes planes on time. "I need a cabin on the Bellissima, same dates as the March 14th sailing out of Miami," I said. "Near midship, deck 10 if possible." I didn't say why that deck. My manifest highlights had already told me what I needed to know, and not saying their names was its own kind of privacy. "Traveling solo?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Flexible dining. Budget?" "Standard," I said. "No upsell. Electronic documents and a paper mailer to a P.O. box." Pro forma before charge? She checked. Please, I said, and I'll be paying with a virtual card number. While she searched inventory, I walked to the window and watched a pair of crows hop along the telephone wire. Control is not the absence of wind, it's the anchor you drop. She came back with options, and I asked for a stateroom 2 doors down from the section that matched the layout I'd memorized. Symbolism matters. I didn't say that part out loud. Found one, adjacent section, numbers end in 45, she said. Refundable terms available with a fee. Refundable, I said. Send the pro forma. It arrived in my inbox with the speed of a solved puzzle. I checked the names, the dates, the terms, and paid with the single-use card. I watched the approved screen appear. Another email landed, cabin confirmation, PDF attached. I opened it, verified guest name, mine, no linked party, flexible dining noted. I saved it as cabin confirm maria.pdf and dropped a second copy into the thumb drive. If they write me out of the story, I said to the empty room, I'll buy a seat in the next paragraph. When Thorne arrived, he brought 2 sandwiches and 0 questions. He looked at my list, at the boxes with their check marks, at the one empty square left, pack. You want help? He asked. Help me not pack the stolen dress, I said, and we both half smiled because humor is a down payment on stamina. I laid out a simple kit on the couch, passport, 1-pagers, timeline, ledger excerpt, manifest highlights, a USB with evidence set to read only, sensible shoes, 2 dresses I already owned and liked, phone charger, power bank. I booked us a separate arrival window from my mother and sister to avoid a hallway ambush. I opened the cruise app and scheduled a guest services appointment for day 1 to pre-register our consent rules. If someone said no, I'd have their name and the time for the next person. On my Notes app, I created a template for every face-to-face I intended to have. Date, location, staff, name, issue, outcome. Details outlive denial. Personal rule, I said, looking up at him. No hallway showdowns, public truth in quiet rooms with staff, or structured spaces with a mic. Speak softly and carry a big stick, he said. My stick is paper, I answered, and slid the folder into my tote like a carpenter sliding a level into a bag. For the first time in 2 days, I considered telling my mother anything. I drafted 2 emails and left them in drafts. One read, any further use of my name or likeness is misrepresentation. The second read, see attached cabin confirmation. I didn't send either. Silence can be pressure. Let people walk into their certainty. If contacted, I said, we have one sentence. All decisions about our trip are made by us, together, in writing. Together, in writing, he repeated, then took his wallet out. I slipped a new copy of our library statement behind his driver's license and tucked another into my purse. Quiet rituals make ugly moments survivable. The day moved like a train that hits its marks. The security hold email got a sibling, an internal note confirming no changes without 2FA on my profile. I printed it and 3-hole punched the page because my high school habits hadn't left me. They had just been waiting for a better class. I checked the cabin confirmation again, tracing the map with a fingertip. Their section here, mine 2 doors down in the adjacent block. A path existed, and it wasn't through them. It was alongside, within earshot, under the same ceiling, but not the same story. Just before dinner, the emails arrived like applause that decided to clap for the right person. Your cabin is confirmed, the first read. The stateroom number sat there in polite font. The deck matched theirs. The door numbers ticked up by 2 like a grown-up wink. A second ping. Security hold active. No changes without 2FA. A green checkmark never looked like such a good color. I turned the screen toward Thorne. We don't knock, I said. We arrive. He grinned, and for once it wasn't because he'd solved something complicated at work. It was because something simple finally respected us. I closed the laptop, placed the evidence folder on top like a paperweight on a life, and set the alarms on my phone. One for boarding, one for the guest services appointment, one for dinner I intend to attend under my name. The apartment exhaled, or maybe I did. Tomorrow we would pack quietly, sleep, and travel. Tonight, I wrote one more thing on the refrigerator list, below the 5 boxes already checked. Show up. Then I drew a small square beside it and filled it in. The first morning at sea always feels like stepping into a story someone else began. We boarded quietly, no fanfare, no photos snapped by the ship photographer at the gangway. I wasn't going to feed a scrapbook someone would use to rewrite me again. Before even finding our cabin, I put my phone on airplane mode, opened the cruise app, and screen captured the banner that read, 2FA required for any profile change. I turned data back on, cross-checked the server time against Pacific Standard, and saved it all to my alias email. A calm paper trail outlives a loud apology. Check-in was deliberate. Thorne and I stood in a separate line, away from my mother and sister. Our luggage was stripped to essentials, carry-ons and one envelope inside mine marked evidence packet. Guest services already had an appointment logged for me. I handed over our printed consent statement, both initials visible, and asked for a notation on our booking. No third-party pairing or dining reassignment without both guests present. The clerk printed a receipt. I noted his name, badge number, and the timestamp in my notes app, then emailed it to myself under records. Maria, this is how you anchor rules before the waves start. The stateroom corridor smelled like recycled air and carpet cleaner, metal on top of it all. Our cabin door was 2 numbers down from theirs, close enough for awareness, far enough to avoid ambush. Suitcases rattled in the hall, voices carried, then hushed when doors clicked shut. I photographed our door and the safety map, date in the corner, not because I needed proof of where I slept, but because paper beats memory. My phone was set to auto-record only in my stateroom. Public spaces are not consent zones, and I said that out loud for the viewers in my head. For dinner, I put on a dress I owned and loved, not the stolen gown, dignity over spectacle. In the mirror, I practiced one line, soft but firm. I will speak for myself. We arrived early at the atrium bar, ordered sparkling waters, and scanned the room like people who knew a play was about to start. The main staircase spiraled down to the dining entrance. A hostess with a tablet stood behind a podium, cue ropes in neat lines. This is the theater, I whispered. We agreed on logistics. Sit near the aisle, phones silenced, no side conversations if cornered. I checked the app again, our table listed separately, the pending acceptance still marked locked. Public spaces carry public records, podiums, tablets, manifests. We enter when our names are called, I told Thorne. He nodded. Not before. It happened quickly. A floor staffer carrying a tray glanced at my black dress and the clipboard sleeve tucked under my arm. He nodded me aside with a flick of his chin. Staff line is that way, he said. Heat climbed my throat, a spike of humiliation. I counted 4 beats of air and replied evenly, I'm a guest. Name's Maria. Cabin 245. He hesitated, muttered, busy night, and walked on. The sting stayed behind. I logged his badge name and the time in my phone. This wasn't revenge. This was pattern. When people can't place you, they'll place you beneath them. You okay? Thorne asked quietly. I nodded once. Adult resilience isn't the absence of hurt. It's the refusal to let hurt reroute you. We joined the dining line just as a wave of guests cleared. I angled us so if Mom or Corvina were watching, they'd see my face when the hostess spoke. I adjusted my posture, shoulders open, chin level, hands visible with QR and ID ready. The hostess greeted each couple warmly, announcing their names for the room. That was the record that mattered tonight. I glanced once toward the captain's table area, not to claim it yet, but to mark its position, the acoustic center for another day. Thorne gave me 2 squeezes, our signal. I would use my full name with our cabin number. A name is a spine. Tonight, mine would stand. When it was our turn, I slid the QR forward. The hostess scanned, checked the tablet, and smiled. Welcome, Miss Maria, surname, and Mr. Thorne, cabin 245. Her voice was bright, professional, amplified by the microphone at her collar. Heads turned. Recognition rippled. Across the lobby, I caught the flicker in Mom's face, a hitch in her breath. Corvina's smile held, but stiffened around the edges. The hostess tapped the tablet, it beeped, and she gestured us in. She repeated for the server captain, Ms. Maria, surname, and Mr. Thorne, cabin 245. I said clearly, "Thank you." Calm, not loud. I did not look at the opposition. The line had moved. So had we. Sometimes the most public justice is a correct introduction. Thorne leaned close as we stepped forward. "They heard it," he murmured. "And the tablet stored it," I answered. The podium as witness is cleaner than any speech. We accepted a two-top near the aisle, angled with a line of sight to their section, but enough distance to breathe. I placed a one-page timeline on my lap, folded, its weight reminding me I wasn't empty. The server poured water. "Plain bread, please," I said, "not wine. We'll toast when the truth can stand up." Thorne mirrored my composure, phone pocketed, shoulders loose, posture unbothered. Across the room, Mom leaned into a maitre d's ear. I noted the time but didn't engage. The clatter of cutlery filled the silence and became a metronome. We let the room return to normal. We were normal. Thorne leaned across the breadbasket. "I'm proud of you." "Be proud of the plan," I said. We talked about the menu, not morality. Life is not only conflict. I scribbled one private line on the back of my napkin. "Truth at the table, not tonight. For the audience in my head, discipline is refusing an early victory lap. Bigger moments demand bigger records." I folded the napkin into a square. Small rituals stiffen the mind. That was when a server captain approached and laid a discreet card by my glass. "Ms. Surname," he said softly. "You've been invited to the captain's table tomorrow evening." At the bottom of the printed note, it read, "Guests of honor will be introduced." My pulse steadied instead of spiking. Across the room, Mom looked at me once, then away. Corvina typed furiously on her phone, her face lit blue by the screen. I slid the card under my plate. I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to anchor. I laid everything out on the stateroom desk an hour before dinner. My evidence kit was simple. One-page timeline, bank ledger excerpt, manifest highlights, call reference numbers, social post printouts. Each slid into a single sealed envelope labeled in block letters. "For the record, guest services, captain upon request." I didn't rehearse the anger. I rehearsed the paper. I chose a plain navy dress I'd bought myself years ago. No sparkle, no embroidery, no one else's fingerprints on it. Dignity over spectacle. Thorne stood behind me and practiced our lines. Mine, "I will correct the record." His, "I stand with Maria." Simple, repeatable, impossible to misquote. I set my phone to do not disturb, leaving only alarms for introductions and seating. Then I practiced box breathing, in and out, while tucking the envelope under my arm like a legal file. Paper over anger. That was the theme. We arrived at the dining room early. I confirmed quietly with the hostess. "Guests of honor will be introduced by name?" She nodded, tablet in hand. I scanned the witness field. Adjacent subtable, two assistant maitre d's with pens at the ready, a sommelier who looked like he could recite vintages by year, and a ship photographer adjusting his flash. Institutional eyes, enough to matter. I mapped the room. Where Mom and Corvina sat, the shortest path to the podium, the nearest staff station if escalation came. I whispered our hand signals again. 2 squeezes meant proceed, palm down meant pause, hand to chest meant stop. We don't fight the room, I reminded myself. We let the room do the remembering. Our table mates arrived, a retired couple from Tampa who joked about Medicare supplement letters and a teacher from Denver who ordered iced tea with lemon. Their chatter was the kind that makes tension easier to carry. I asked for water, not wine. Clear head, clear record. Thorne kept our 2-sentence commitment folded in his wallet within reach. I left the envelope resting on the bread plate, fingers touching its corner lightly so the intention was visible without being loud. A camera flashed somewhere near the balcony. I made a mental note. Time-stamped photos are witnesses too. I whispered to myself, "Some names arrive before you. Tonight, mine arrives with me." The captain welcomed the table, and the hostess began her introductions. "Ms. Maria, surname, and Mr. Thorne." Polite applause. Then, from the adjoining table, Mom's voice rang like a gavel. Maria insisted her sister take the cruise. To heal. Heads bobbed, approval rippled. A lie rehearsed enough to feel like him. I stood slowly, envelope in hand. Captain, with respect, I need to correct the record briefly. Gasps fluttered down the tablecloth. May I place this with guest services after reading one sentence? The captain nodded. I unfolded the top sheet. On March 10th at 11:43 a.m., charges for stateroom upgrade and dining package were placed on my card, ending 1247 without my consent. I handed the envelope to the staffer at the captain's elbow, chain of custody visible. My voice carried steady. This is not an argument. It is documentation. I turned toward my mother and sister, still composed. This was never yours to claim. The manifest highlights slid across to the maitre d', timestamps, device notes, edits that had ghosted my name. Thorne's voice followed. My gift was to Maria. I did not consent to any reassignment. The staffer repeated for clarity, loud enough for the room. Gift intended for Ms. Surname, no reassignment consent on record. Corvina tried the familiar line. We're just trying to heal. I answered evenly. Healing that borrows someone else's name is harm. I didn't raise my volume. My fingertips rested on the envelope already in staff hands. The symbol was enough. Tablemates murmured. The retired gentleman leaned toward his wife and said softly, Paper doesn't lie. I nodded once, because posture is louder than repetition. I spoke 3 sentences in crisp succession. No one may use my name or accounts without my written consent. Any pairing changes require both of us present. I welcome reconciliation, with accuracy. I thanked the captain for allowing the correction and sat down. The hostess resumed introductions as if the river had always meant to bend this way. Order restored, the room absorbed the fact like stone dropped in water. Thorne squeezed my hand twice. Plan executed. I lifted my glass and took a sip, not of victory, but of stability. Justice isn't fireworks, it's gravity. Dinner resumed. The sommelier offered wine. I shook my head. Clarity, not cloud. Across the room, Mom bent low into a relative's ear, her lips fast, her face tight. Corvina's fork scraped porcelain like chalk. A tablemate leaned closer. Good for you, clear and kind. I smiled once. Kind to the facts. I jotted a timestamp and the staff names on the back of the menu. Keep the souvenir, I thought. Someday it will be a timeline. I ate my bread slowly, hungry not just for food, but for an end to erasure. Halfway through the main course, a discreet note arrived from guest services to the captain. He read it, glanced at me, and gave a small nod. Confirmation. The file was logged. Across the room, Mom shifted, half rising as if to retake the stage. Before she could, Thorne pushed his chair back, stood, and cleared his throat. Every head turned. His eyes met mine. This was the moment he chose, on record. I laid my palm flat on the table. Anchor set. The silence that followed my hand flattening against the linen stretched longer than a second, but shorter than a breath. Silverware stilled mid-air, a cough caught in someone's throat. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause. The entire captain's table waited. I didn't move. My eyes stayed on Thorne, not on my mother, not on my sister. Discipline of attention is sometimes the only thing you can control. Thorne cleared his throat, a sound that carried because nothing else dared to, and rose. His shoulders squared, hands visible on the table edge, voice steady. For an older audience, those signals matter. They read as credibility before a word leaves your mouth. I reminded myself of my own rule, no speechifying from me. Let one voice, clean and unequivocal, carry the room. Around us, institutional witnesses stood like guardrails. The hostess with her tablet, 2 assistant maitre d's with pens poised, the ship photographer adjusting his camera. Everything was visible. That was the point. Thorne's words landed like weights evenly spaced. My promise was to Maria. I did not consent to any reassignment of my gift or her name. He didn't look at my mother. He turned toward the captain and the staff. Any pairing changes must be approved by both of us, together, in writing. He asked, calm as a contract, that a notation be added to our booking. No third-party changes without dual consent. I stayed seated, nodding once. Posture can say thank you without stealing ownership. The assistant maitre d' repeated his request back, closed-loop communication, and the hostess tapped the notes into her tablet, the beeps punctuating each clause. A murmur rolled through the nearby tables, soft but unmistakable. The retired couple from Tampa whispered, "That's how you do it." I breathed in a box pattern. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. I did not glance at Corvina, did not gloat. Victory without spectacle is still victory. For the viewers I carry with me, I thought, character is what you do when no one's watching. Integrity is what you say when everyone is. The maitre d' asked for our booking number. I handed over a one-pager I'd prepared with the ticket ID, our guest numbers, and a single sentence in bold. Dual consent required. The hostess confirmed the two-factor note already on my profile from the earlier security hold. She added, "No reassignment without in-person acknowledgement from both guests." A staffer retrieved the envelope I delivered the night before to guest services. He logged chain of custody, date, time, employee ID on a simple form. The captain nodded at both of us, his expression one of appreciation more than surprise. "Thank you for handling this procedurally," he said. Around us, the room exhaled, the conversation slowly resuming its normal course. I opened my email on my phone, typed myself a quick summary with staff names and time, and sent it to records, Maria. Paper beats applause. I lifted my water glass. It felt heavier, as if the boundary itself added weight to the crystal. Mom tried first, her voice softened to Sunday school tones. "We're just trying to heal here." I set my glass down and answered evenly, "Accuracy helps healing, theft doesn't." Corvina leaned in with her well-practiced pout. "This is humiliating." I kept my voice gentle. Humiliation belongs to the lie, not the correction. I refused side conversations. Any concern, I said clearly, could be raised with staff present. No more hallway tribunals. A cousin muttered, "Ungrateful." The retired gentleman across the way answered him, "Not me. She paid. Names matter." It was a small ally moment, but in rooms like this, those are the cracks where truth grows. I logged each exchange mentally with its timestamp. I did not escalate. The process was the win, not the applause. When the plates were cleared, we rose and walked out to the promenade. The wind off the bow whipped through the corridor, muffling the music that floated from the atrium. I thanked Thorne for his exact language. "Not emotional rescue," I told him. "Precision." He nodded. We set our next steps in quick succession. 1. Screenshot the updated notes on the tablet at guest services. 2. Request written confirmation of the dual consent rule. 3. Avoid public overlap with Mom and Corvina until the paper came back in our hands. I texted my alias with the subject line ready. Day 2 dinner S11 staff notations. Write it while the ink is still wet, I said, half to myself, half to anyone listening in a different decade. Back in our stateroom, the phone buzzed before I could take off my shoes. The family group chat exploded, angry emojis, clapping emojis, accusations of betrayal and praise for sacrifice, all braided together. I wrote one line and then muted. All decisions about our names, funds, and pairings are made by us, together, in writing. Then I forwarded a concise update to the cruise security ticket. Verbal on-record correction made at captain's table. Staff notes added. Awaiting written confirmation. I scrolled through social posts already trying to rewrite the scene, screen captured the worst, and archived them. I did not reply. Thorne suggested a walk on deck. I shook my head. Victory isn't adrenaline, it's maintenance. On the balcony, with the water black and silver beneath us, I felt the shift settle in my chest. I was no longer asking for fairness. I was enforcing it. 3 takeaways. I spoke softly to myself. And for the audience, I always imagine, keep receipts short and legible, ask institutions to repeat your request back, and separate love from logistics. Love breathes better when the paperwork is clean. I wrote one line in my journal. Today, Loyalty found its voice, and mine didn't need to shout. I set my alarm for the next day's schedule. Consistency is how boundaries become culture. An email pinged as the horizon swallowed the sun. Audit log extract, pending verification. A second ping. Dining, captain's table, follow-up. Then, another alert. Attempted pairing change, blocked by 2FA. Device listed, unknown. I leaned on the railing, the ship horn humming a low verdict into the night. I turned to Thorn. If they try again, the log will say who they are. He nodded once, steady as the sea. Tomorrow, the paper wouldn't just speak. It would decide. At noon sharp, I walked to guest services with my ID in hand. The staffer behind the counter introduced herself, gave her employee number, and slid an envelope across the desk. Audit log extract, she said. I signed a receipt, her pen scratching the exact time down, chain of custody, visible, recorded. I sat on a nearby bench, the envelope still warm from her hand, and opened it carefully. The summary line glared up at me, device fingerprint and IP stamp for the accept that had tried to reassign my booking. The nickname was plain. Family iPad, Drusilla. A timestamp circled the exact hour of the farewell dinner prep, mundane, clean, undeniable. The staffer reminded me that two-factor authentication now blocked changes. This record predated the lock I'd demanded. It was the footprint of theft. I asked for a digital copy, forwarded it to my records, Maria alias, and wrote the subject line myself. Audit, IDs, matched. I sat at a quiet porthole table and built my case on one page. Event, timestamp, device, who benefits, evidence link, ledger excerpt with unauthorized charges, manifest diffs, screenshots of their healing posts, audit log extract pointing to the family iPad. I sent it to the bank's dispute portal with a short cover. Cardholder non-authorization, vendor logs attached. I replied to the cruise compliance ticket, audit links attempted reassignment to Drusilla's device, please append and note. Thorn read over my shoulder, took the pen and initialed the bottom corner. Unity in ink. 1 page gets read, 10 pages get ignored. Facts shorten fights. By late afternoon, I had arranged the stage. The midship lounge, neutral ground with staff present. I requested a maitre d' and a supervisor to stand by, institutional eyes on the room. Then I sent one message into the family chat. Clarification at midship lounge, 6:30 p.m., staff present. No arguments, no replies. I muted the thread and left it there. I carried 3 envelopes in my bag. A, the audit extract. B, the ledger and manifest summary. C, my updated notice of misrepresentation. Ground rules rehearsed in my head. One person speaks at a time. We reference documents, not feelings. Staff keeps custody of any paper exchanged. Thorn's role, 1 sentence only. Brevity is discipline. I stood outside the lounge door, breathed in a 4-count box, and pushed it open. The reveal was simple. With staff watching, I laid envelope A on the table. This is the vendor's audit log for the attempted reassignment. I read the identifier clearly. Device nickname, Apple ID grouping, timestamp, no adjectives, just nouns. My mother sputtered. That's the family iPad. Anyone could. I answered, steady. The log shows who was signed in and when. Corvina tried her script. We were trying to heal. I looked at her squarely. Healing doesn't need my name or my card. The supervisor took notes in a service report. I slid envelope B across, ledger and manifest summary inside. The truth sat in manila paper, heavier than their words. Public truth plus paper beats performance. The consequences started immediately. The supervisor explained. Vendor will reverse unauthorized pairings, flag the device, and attach the dual consent note to our booking permanently. I read out my bank dispute case ID. The supervisor wrote it into the report. Mom lifted her chin, indignation ready, but the supervisor cut her off gently. Please allow Ms. Surname to finish. For once, the institution guarded me. Thorn delivered his line as rehearsed. My gift was to Maria, no reassignment without both of us in writing. The maitre d' offered to restore our original dining window. I accepted with a nod, no flourish. Result over victory laps. I handed envelopes A and B back to staff custody. The paper would travel farther than I could. Later that evening, in the dining room, I walked past their table. I placed my cabin card gently on the linen before them. My voice was calm, level. Consider this the last luxury you'll ever steal from me. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't touch their things. The card was my period. Around us, forks froze. A hush rippled. The curtain had dropped. I turned away, shoulders open, chin neutral. Thorne walked with me, half a step behind, not to rescue but to accompany. The server captain, already briefed, guided us to our place. The room's rhythm resumed, but altered. My phone buzzed as the bread was served. Bank, provisional credit issued for the charges I had flagged. A second ping. Cruise, pairing restored, device flagged. I forwarded both to my records alias, subject closeout signs. Paper trails are ribbons adults actually keep. I typed 2 lines to the family thread. Corrections made. Going forward, accuracy or silence. Then I muted the chat for good. Revenge isn't shouting, it's correction, permanent and calm. I sat back, unfolded my napkin, and let hunger replace anger. For the viewers in my head, keep a 1-page fact sheet, ask institutions to repeat your request back, separate love from logistics. Love breathes better on clean paper. Thorne lifted his glass. To consent, in writing. I touched mine to his. To names that stay put. Out the window, the horizon stretched, a line drawn across the water. Boundaries hold ships steady. They hold people steady, too. I scheduled a post-cruise call with a counselor. Growth, not grudge. Real healing only begins after accountability. My phone lit once more. Incident report number issued from guest services. A request from the bank. Confirm if you want to add a statement regarding device misuse. And buried under the muted thread, a banner. Mom renamed the chat. Healing pause. I didn't unmute. I set the screen face down, raised my glass, and set tomorrow's alarm. When we dock in Miami, the paperwork will greet us before the people do.